Good afternoon or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to today's exclusive webinar. Before we dive into our topic, my name is Yesim Cevik. I will moderate the webinar today from Frankfurt, and I'm extremely blessed to discuss and ask questions today with one of the most profound experts in this ecosystem. He is the founder and managing partner of Venture Science, operating directly out of Silicon Valley, and someone who has been acting for years at the intersection of groundbreaking research and commercial scaling. So, highly welcome, Matt Oguz. Can you give us a short introduction of your person?
Thank you, Yesim. It's a pleasure to be here today. As you said, I live and work here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my journey started here first as an entrepreneur, as I built my own technology company. After I had an exit event over 10 years ago, I switched over to the investment side of things and started Venture Science, which is a quantitative venture capital and today more of a hybrid investment firm. And of course, being here in Silicon Valley, we're very blessed to see the developments firsthand, technologies that change the world, for lack of a better term, in the short run and in the long run. So I've witnessed a lot of those technologies, and I had the opportunity to meet with people, become friends with people who built these technologies on the software side, on the hardware side, and of course, investing thematically over the years in space technology, in life sciences, longevity, food tech, agricultural technologies, drone technologies, of course, AI and quantum computing over the years. So I truly enjoy sharing my observations and my experiences with the world that's outside Silicon Valley. Sometimes the things that we see here are very much out there and not too close to what we see today, but sometimes they come to fruition much faster and change the world as we see today with artificial intelligence. So today, the talk of town, what everybody's talking about is artificial intelligence, right? The wave started maybe 2 years ago, and it's taken the world by a storm. NVIDIA, a chip manufacturer here in Silicon Valley, in terms of market capitalization and size, was of course much smaller than Google, Microsoft, and Apple, but it's come super fast and became the most valuable company in the world. And people are probably very curious, how did all of this happen? And is this a bubble? Is this some sort of a wave? Is this going to go away? What happened? How did this whole thing happen? For those who live in Silicon Valley, it was already happening. We were seeing signs, we were seeing engineering efforts and developments going back many, many years. In fact, we started investing in AI companies, I think about 5 years ago. AI as a discipline, as an academic area of study, is not very new. It goes back 20, 30 years, maybe 40 years. For those who studied computer science, you probably took some AI courses as well. But at the time, the capabilities were very limited. And everybody thought that's where AI started and that's where AI ended. And it wouldn't grow any bigger than that. But then something interesting and something magical happened. As people started putting more computation power into AI, and when they started increasing the scale, and what I mean by that is, imagine you're working on a technology and you only have one computer, and you look at the problem, it somehow solves the problem, but it doesn't really give you something exciting. And you decide, okay, I'm going to stop here because I have a computer, it's solving the problem. Maybe it's not solving the more difficult problems, and so we're going to stop here. What happened in AI is when they brought in another computer and another computer and another one and another one, when they brought in 100 of them into the whole mix, all of a sudden something magical happened. The AI technologies started gaining insight, started gaining more power, and started providing better answers, interesting answers. And we weren't really sure that this would happen, and we certainly aren't extremely sure why it's happening. But with scale, AI software starts working better, starts providing answers to us. And so this was a big awakening moment, big aha moment. And we realized, oh, wow, if we can bring more GPUs into the mix, then we will get better answers to the problems that we're trying to solve. And what are the problems that we're trying to solve? These are essentially decision problems. These are problems that we're having a hard time deciding on. And sometimes we resort to heuristics or gut feeling when we can't really compute every single element of it. It could be a hiring decision. It could be a decision where to open the next manufacturing facility. It could be all sorts of decisions, but because we are bounded by the amount of data that we can absorb and process in our human brains, we are not able to get to the optimal answer very quickly. And that's the entire effort behind artificial intelligence and also quantum computing is how can we make better decisions in our everyday lives, in our businesses? How could we make optimal decisions? Because as we decide, we put something up, we put something at stake. It could be money, it could be our time. As we make a decision, we wager a certain amount. So, for example, if we're, let's say we're a manufacturing company who would like to open a manufacturing plant somewhere, but where? Well, we'll sit down, we'll talk about it, we'll debate, we'll have lots of meetings. And at the end, we're going to somehow decide, okay, this location is the ideal place for this next facility. And then as soon as we make that decision, we invest, we deploy our capital, we go over there, we build that plant. Now, this is very suboptimal because we haven't really computed every element. Why didn't we compute every single possibility? Because we didn't have computation power. Well, today we do have the computation power and it's increasing. And that's why Nvidia is selling every single chip that they make. And that's why Nvidia's market capitalization's going through the roof. By way of using this increased computational power, today we are at a much better position than we ever were in terms of improving some of the industries that had been sort of dormant or stale over the last 20, 30 years. Core technology industries, for example, if you think about an eBay, yes, it started with internet and now it's pretty optimal. Amazon, pretty optimal. You can buy a package, they'll bring it to you the next day. That's fine. But how about healthcare? How about diagnostics? How about longevity? How about life sciences? These industries have been dormant for a long period of time. If we go to a doctor today, they'll treat us pretty much the same way they treated us 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Now, all of this is suboptimal, of course. Why didn't that change? Why don't we have better medicines? We had some breakthrough medicines. Of course, the GLP-1 weight loss drug, that's a breakthrough medication. Also, the mRNA vaccines. But how about everything else? How about Alzheimer's? How about cancer? Uh, these diseases are still out there, like a time bomb for all of us. All of our families have been impacted by these. But what if we take the computational power that we generated today by way of GPUs and quantum computing and throw that computation power at these medical problems? What are we going to get out of that? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating. We've actually invested in a number of companies on that front. One of them is a drug discovery company, and they use AI and computations to discover the next generation medications. Another one we just invested last month uses machine learning to detect ovarian cancer, a deadly cancer if it's detected much later in their stage in women, and it's often unfortunately detected later. Longevity, stem cells, stem cell rejuvenation, and many, many, many other areas are now using advanced computational power to improve their lives. So, if we take a look at all of this is happening and then take a step back and think, well, are we in a bubble? I don't know if we're in a bubble in terms of the stock prices or where the market's going to be or where all of this is going to end, but I can tell you that it's very, very exciting to see new powerful computers, GPUs, quantum computers come into the fields that actually have been not very successful in solving these big problems in the past. And now we're able to do that.
Thank you very much for your introduction about this very deep dive topics. Yes, technology has entered a historic acceleration phase. I think so too, and driven not only by the well-known forces of AI and quantum computing, but also by groundbreaking innovations in areas such as healthcare. It's also my favorite topic, robotics, manufacturing, space, or climate tech. And today, we are discuss about witnessing a normal technology cycle, or is it a structural transformation of the global economy that requires a fundamental reordering of capital allocation? From my side, I'm here in Germany and based in Frankfurt, and we have, especially from Germany perspective, these developments are of the utmost relevance. It is about nothing less than the competitiveness and technological sovereignty of, especially in Germany, in the next decade. And I am also an angel investor, and I think when the rules of the game change, investment strategies, but also change. Not only the capture crowd, also the secure strategic independence. We talked yesterday, especially Matt, about this topic, and we are often told that technology is entering a historic acceleration phase driven by AI and so on. And considering the specific breakthroughs we see now in areas like what we say healthcare or robotics, and are the witnessing another normal tech cycle, or is it a structural transformation of the global economy, and in which transformation especially we are, or what are the especially news in this ecosystem?
If we look at the world that we live in today, even before we get into the business side of things, to me, it seems like we really haven't seen anything new in quite some time. Certainly, we've had COVID. It was a painful 2, 3 years where we all stayed in their homes, and then it took a while to maybe get back to normalcy. I don't know if we're ever back to normal on that front, but this being year 2025 going into year 2026, it really does seem like we are still in the year 2016, 17, 18, that period of time, maybe older than that. If I look at the world around us, we really don't see a lot of major changes. It stayed irrelevant, pretty much the same over the last maybe 10, 15 years. We've had a massive change when internet became mainstream, I would say mid to late 2000s. Of course, we had internet bubble, but after that turned around, it became mainstream. We use that in our everyday lives. And of course, Apple was a huge catalyst on that front with their devices that changed the world, that changed how we communicated, that changed how we create information, consume information, exchange information. And as a result, Apple became the world's most valuable company and kept that role for for a very long time. It wasn't because a shiny iPhone that they made. It was really because they brought something new to the world. We want newness. As all of us are aging, as the population is aging, a new generation is coming. That's just the way the universe maybe operates. There's always newness coming in, and something new, especially if it's valuable, especially if it's also beautiful, aesthetically beautiful, more efficient, makes you exciting to use. These are the things that make people happy. These are the things that make people uh, have hope for the future. And tools give us that newness. Computers are tools. CPU based computers first gave us maybe the number one productivity tool in the world, which is copy paste. Can you imagine a world without copy paste? But we've had it. Word, Excel, we've had that for for a long period of time, and that improved the way we have done things. So, looking at where we are today, we are really ready for new computation platforms. We're really ready for newness there. We love the mobile phones. We love all of that. Now we've had them for quite some time now, and they're starting to sort of become a little bit scale. I mean, looking at our phones, on my phone, I have at least 30, 40 different apps. I have to go into all these different apps to do something. I think we're going to get to a point where we will have a platform with not that many apps, but instead an agent perhaps, instead an operating a new operating system that could execute whatever I want it to execute. For example, today if I want to book a trip, I go to my favorite trip booking platform. For me, it happens to be Expedia. Other people use other places. But I go on Expedia, I look for the flight, look for the hotel, look at the pictures. And then if I want to go shopping, I go to Amazon, I go to Target, all these different apps. I should be able to just go to my phone and just tell my phone, I'm going from here to Frankfurt. These are the dates that I'd like to go. I'd like to stay in my favorite hotel chain. Maybe I'm collecting points because of that. And then all it needs to do is just do some basic research in the background, find the optimal price point, get back to me, and I just say, yes, book it for me, and I'm done. All of the apps that we see today are what we call wrappers around just data that's on the background. A travel app is a wrapper on top of a travel data platform. Your healthcare app is a wrapper around your healthcare data. If you're using an email app like Gmail or Outlook, this is just a wrapper around your mail data. So, all of these wrappers, these are the things that we've developed over the last 20 years to be able to work. All of that's changing and all of that's sort of going away. We're moving towards a much smarter platform in which all we have to do is tell the platform what it is that we need, ask for optimal opinions, of course, filter it through our common sense. Now, we will have to build some guardrails or checkpoints, make sure that that exchange happens efficiently and truthfully, of course. But then from there, execute that and move on to the next world. The new generation today, I listen to my children talk to each other at school. The way they're seeing the world, the way they're seeing business, the way they're seeing technology is very, very different than the way the older generations see it. And so, if we're going to be in a world where things are going to be executed much more efficiently, uh, using AI, using quantum computing, and other deep tech platforms, then we're only in the very, very beginning phases of this entire change with this entire industrial revolution that's going to impact all of the industries. What I see here today in Silicon Valley is the companies here use AI every single day as their new operating system. Can you imagine using Windows 95 as your operating system today? It's the same thing. If you're not using AI, if you're not touching an AI platform every single day as a business, you will be left behind. You're behind. If you're not using these platforms for your creativity, you're essentially falling behind because your competition, your global competition, they're using that. So if you take the efficiencies that are generated by using these new platforms and start calculating economic benefits, start doing the math appears very, very clear. And that's the math that's been uplifting the markets. The markets were down a little bit yesterday. The markets are way up again today, which is a good sign to see for all of us who invest in public markets. And of course, in venture science, we invest in both public and private markets. We invest in new companies, startups, new technologies nobody knows, nobody has heard about outside Silicon Valley, perhaps, as well as the publicly traded companies that are also here in Silicon Valley. So I believe I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful, first of all, for these technologies to come start making things better. Healthcare, life sciences, number one. But then from there, the math is just extraordinary when you start doing the math, taking the efficiencies, start adding the numbers together. The levels that you see are far higher than where they are today in terms of revenue, in terms of cost savings, and everything else. And so all of that comes together and creates much increased valuation levels for those companies. And that's why the stocks have been going up.
Hey there, listeners. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the future of markets, take a moment to support the show. Hit that like button, share this episode with fellow investors and market enthusiasts, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you very much for your overview and the positive impacts and insights about the topics in Silicon Valley. And it's important for us as an investor also. I think before we talk about also concrete investments, it's important for many investors. We must acknowledge the global risks also. The world economy is dominated actually by geopolitical tensions or supply chain issues, you know it. And we talked about some risks lately, and especially we talked about also about the entrepreneur like Elon Musk, and react to this by focusing on his vertical integration and use also critical infrastructure, like he is have a new vision about a new car model. And Do you see this as a blueprint for the necessity of resilience, and which specific sector benefit directly from this new investment focus? We heard many times about healthcare and so on, but how you can see the global risks actually, like for the investors?
Well, every investment comes with inherent risks. There is no investment that carries no risk, especially investing in high growth sectors, investing in venture capital, investing in startups. These investments come with a lot more risk than if you just took your money and bought a government bond or some annuity. The returns, of course, on bonds are going to be much lower, but the risk is going to be lower too. Although, as you all know, many bonds failed as well. There was when Credit Suisse failed in Switzerland. I think it was over $400 billion of bonds that people thought was safe. So it's worthwhile to think about what's safe. People buy gold. Is it safe to buy gold? And then you buy it, you have to store it at home. People could come steal it from you. Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan, said that the cost of investing in gold is -4% because you have to store it, you have to safe keep it. You may buy some gold and forget that you ever bought it, and then it could be gone. So risk is everywhere. I think what Elon is working on is essentially a few industries that is near and dear to him, space being one, electric cars so that the carbon footprint gets lower, and of course with Twitter X, exchange of information freely. These are the three industries that he picked to work on. Other people work on other industries. Uh, we have been investing in technology for a long time, but this year started maybe last year. We love investing in life sciences, biotechnology, healthcare, because as I explained earlier, life sciences is ready for this change, is ready for a jump. Now, from my vantage point here in Silicon Valley, because we see these here all the time, our social friends, people in our close circle, they work for those companies. And so it's a little bit different here than anywhere else where people would like to take more risks in terms of investing in these technologies. But of course, over the last 10, 20, maybe going back 50 years, technology has done very, very well. I believe that investing in technology, put the risks aside, is very exciting. And it's wonderful to be part of a new industrial wave by way of technology. Space technology is another one. I mean, who doesn't look at the skies, young, old, any age, and just wonder what's out there? So if you think about it this way, how could you not invest in space? Investing has changed over the world. It's used to be very boring. And the new generation that I see today, the younger people, they deploy their capital into causes that matter to them. They think about impact. They think about whether or not this is good for the world. We see that it's very encouraging. And so when we invest, is it exciting to invest in gold? To me, it's not. Is it more risky to invest in a quantum computing startup? Absolutely. But if it works out, it'll change the world much, much better than gold or a corporate bond out of Switzerland. So I think as investors, it's important to maintain a balanced portfolio based on your particular investment needs, your particular capital needs, your particular wealth level. But I think it's worthwhile to keep an eye on for what's changing the world, what's new, what's exciting, and then decide from there. At least that's the way we do it here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Any of you guys, if you ever visit, you will see the same level of excitement. It's very easy to see. It's hard to miss. Governments are very well aware of the technologies that are changing the world. Here in the United States, the Trump administration has announced $1 trillion of new programs that go into the build out of AI data centers. And these are numbers that we have never seen at that level before. So starting out here in the United States, massive, massive government programs at many, many different levels. Um, and also from there, we have European Union, we have the UK, and they're also announcing different programs, different funding platforms. So of course, the governments are also very keen. Maybe we can take a few questions from the audience today. If anyone has a question, they could type it in the Q&A section or type it in the chat box here, and um, I will try to answer. Otherwise, I think in the interest of time, and again, I apologize for the technical difficulties that we've encountered today.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Yes, I'd love to talk a little bit about our investment platform. So Dwana says her question is about education. How do you see AI affecting this sector? And do you think as far as technology keep growing and moving fast, this sector would be promising as an investment over the short time period? Education is changing rapidly as well. And in a way, maybe we don't know yet what universities will look like, what high schools will look like over the next 20 years. Now, here in Silicon Valley, kids are already learning AI in their classrooms and using them. So instead of people blocking AI, instead of people sort of shutting it out of the school system, here they're embracing it. They're bringing it into the entire mix. Oxford University, which is where I spent some time as well, goes back to, I think the founding is the year 911, maybe even older than that. And it has one of the world's oldest libraries with books nobody even knows that exist, handwritten books going back 1,000 years, maybe longer than that. They have a massive initiative with OpenAI. They're scanning all of the books that they've accumulated in Oxford's libraries and building their massive AI databases with knowledge. And just imagine if you brought all of these books and the books that people didn't even know about. Maybe there was only a handful of copies printed, but with important information. There's knowledge that we don't know that exists, knowledge that may have been created 500 years ago. So now, first and foremost, they're building AI to combine all of that knowledge together. If you're a university teaching engineering, if you're teaching it the same way you've been teaching it over the last 10 years, you're behind. But what if you took engineering concepts from all the languages in the world, Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, any other language, and you were able to create a curriculum based on this massive new information that the students are going to graduate substantially different than the way they're getting out of school today. So I think first and foremost, we will have access to knowledge that we didn't have before. And secondly, I think the way we will learn things will change. So Venture Science is a quantitative investment firm, and we invest both in startups here, both in brand new companies that we see, and we invest in companies that are in the public market, and we invest in companies that are going public, the IPOs. So invest in a combination of those three things. Of course, with so many amazing technology companies today that are already publicly traded, your Googles, Nvidias, Apples, Microsoft, Amazon, and all the others, we keep an eye on for what they're doing. In addition, we look at brand new companies that are rising. Usually these companies are started by people who previously in a large company anyway. And that's a good source of deal flow for us. So we invested in space tech companies. The founders worked at SpaceX before, Elon Musk space company, and then they leave, they start their own company not too far from SpaceX. And then we go discover that company, we invest in that company. So I will get back to everyone attended this talk today with a few more links and also with links to listen to the conversation today. But as Yesim said, yes, we're very excited to invest both on public and the private fronts.
My last questions to you, Matt. Today we have illuminated the transformation, the risks, and the investment structure. Now, for the all important questions, I think it is which is based on conviction. What would you say to an investor or potential investor who finds the opportunity compelling but is still hesitating?
I think if you see an investment opportunity and you're hesitating, then it's worthwhile to explore why that you're something in your brain is giving you doubt about that. And it's probably a valid position. Our brains are very advanced. If you're hesitating about an investment, you should absolutely sit down and really write down the things that make you worry about that investment. And those are probably valid things. And if you don't make the investment, it's important to learn from it. Now, if you do make an investment and it works out to be a successful investment, that's wonderful. You should also think about what were the elements that made this investment successful. But if the investment doesn't work out, it's also worthwhile to think about why it didn't work out and what happened there. So I think hesitation's healthy. Certainly keep an eye on it, accept it, embrace it, and try to understand from it. Your mind's trying to tell you something about something that you were not exactly sure. And you might even want to use an AI system to sort of describe the investment opportunity, your thoughts, your concerns and worries, and maybe you get some insight from that as well. For us, we look at multiple dimensions of an investment opportunity. Of course, us being a professional investment firm, investment platform, we don't haphazardly make investments. We analyze things in greater detail and then go from there. But if you do have the conviction, if you'd like to take the risk, and of course, like I said, this is something along the lines of your risk appetite, your level of capital, then I think investing in something new, investing in something exciting, investing in things that have the potential to grow as well. Where is the investment located? In Silicon Valley, it's example after example after example. These companies are doing very, very well. A lot of them fail too, no doubt about it, but a lot of them succeed. So this is very fertile ground. So we're very fortunate to be here. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Yesim. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. We will make it better next time. And I wish everybody a happy week.
Thank you very much, Matt. It has become clear that we need new investment frameworks in this phase of structural transformation and heightened global risk. It was very important for many of the attendees here. And yes, you offer the opportunity for individual follow-up conversations after this session. And thank you very much, and remain strategically invested in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.